Good morning and welcome. My name is John Lajamodia. I'm very pleased to be your Master of Ceremonies for the first Symposium on Indigenous Economies, hosted by the Banque of Canada, the Tulo Centre of Indigenous Economics, and the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. I want to acknowledge I'm here in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis, where historically we worked together. We shared economies, we did things. But we know now that got interrupted, and sometimes violently. But to me, here we are having these conversations. And to me, that means we're trying to do better. And to me, that means the future is going to be better than what we had in the past as we all collectively move towards that brighter future here in Canada, around the world, with Indigenous people. I was asked to MC this conference a couple months ago, and when they asked me, I was like right away quickly accepted. But as a Métis business person, consultant, teacher of Indigenous awareness, and a publisher of an Indigenous newspaper, this stuff's right on my alley. So I would have tried to present at this, but instead I'm going to be hosting. But after I look at the agenda and all the speakers we're going to have over the next couple days, folks, we're in good hands, and you're in the right place at the right time. So thank you again for joining us on day one of the program. It's now my great pleasure to invite Elder Claudette Commanda from the Gitigan Zibi Anishinaabeg First Nation, and she's going to offer an opening blessing. Elder Commanda, over to you.
John, Elder Commanda is not connected currently. I would like to throw to, if you can introduce Sarah Jules, please, for our first land acknowledgement.
Absolutely. So, okay, Sarah Jules from the Tulo Centre of Indigenous Economics, Sarah, over to you.
Liked. The Tulo Center of Indigenous Economics is headquartered in Tecumseh on Secwepemc Uluk, where we have lived and traded since time immemorial. Bookstrom.
Thank you, Sarah. Now I'd like to invite Naramu Parada from the Reserve Bank of New Zealand for their land acknowledgement.
Tihei mauri ora, e kore e tā I te rautakitahi me tuku ki te karere kia tai mai te wiwini, kia tai mai te wawana, kia tai mai te ariki koronga tā ki tō whenua nei. Koe nei te keke ho atu nei I rungo Aotearoa, te ika e takoto nei. Mai e te tipua, mai e te tahito, mai e te kāhui o ngā ariki. Mai e tā whiwhi atu kia tū, mai e tā whiwhi atu kia rongo, mai e tā whiwhi atu kia tāne. Wano whanahara mai te tōki, haumi e, hui e, tāiki e. Kia ora, John. Back to you.
Thank you, Naramu. Now I'd like to invite Suzette Argo from the Bank of Canada for today's final land acknowledgement.
Thank you, John. I am joining you today from the Bank of Canada's head offices on the traditional unceded ancestral lands of the Algonquin and Anishinaabeg. Ottawa, the name of my home city and the name of the river that flows behind our office building, is derived from the Algonquin word adawe, which means to trade. For centuries, this river was the source of sustenance and spirituality for the Algonquin and Anishinaabeg. Its tributaries were a conduit for trade networks between Indigenous peoples and stretched as far as the northern tip of Labrador in the east and Lake Superior in the west. People came to this area from near and far to meet and exchange trade goods, and through this symposium we are doing the same. But instead of goods, we are meeting to exchange and trade our knowledge. On behalf of the Bank of Canada and my colleagues across the country, I extend my thanks and respect to the Inuit, the Métis, and the First Nations people and their ancestors for their deep connections with the land on which we live and their immeasurable contributions. Thank you. Back to you, John.
Yeah, the old unmute, eh? Thanks, Suzette. And our other land acknowledgers. Do we have Claudette, Elder Claudette back, or should we go into the welcomings?
We will go into the opening remarks, John. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now I have the pleasure to introduce Tiff Macklem, Governor of the Bank of Canada. He's going to provide the first set of opening remarks. Mr. Macklem was appointed Governor of the Bank of Canada in June 2020 for a 7-year term. Governor Macklem first joined the Banque du Canada in 1984 and held various senior positions, including Chief of Research and Advisor to the Governor. He was appointed a Deputy Governor in 2004 and Senior Deputy Governor in 2010. During the global financial crisis, Mr. Macklem was Associate Deputy Minister at the Department of Finance and represented Canada at the G7, G20, and Financial Stability Board. From 2014 until his appointment as governor, Mr. Macklem was the Dean of the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. Governor Macklem will now commence with his opening remarks. Governor?
Well, thank you, John, and let me offer a very warm welcome to everybody today. This is our very first symposium on Indigenous economies. Elder Commander, I'm sorry we couldn't benefit from your blessing to launch us, and I hope we can get back to that. I do want to thank Sarah and Narimu and Suzette for their very meaningful land acknowledgements. These acknowledgements are a vital part of our collective efforts towards reconciliation. They reflect much more than a historical accounting of the original occupants of this land. They commemorate not only Indigenous peoples' rich contributions to our countries, but also their kinship to Mother Earth and her life-sustaining gifts. And importantly, land acknowledgements help us all reflect on the history that brought us to reside here. This is one of the main goals of the Central Bank Network for Indigenous Inclusion, to recognize the shared history of colonialism in our countries and to work together to acknowledge and address some of the historical wrongs. This symposium is critical to our common objectives, and I want to thank two people who have been absolutely key to making it happen. First, I want to thank Manny Jules, Chief Commissioner of the First Nations Tax Commission and founder of the Tulo Center of Indigenous Economics. Manny, you have been the inspiration behind much of the bank's work in this space, and you've been a leader in helping this, bringing this event to fruition. Thank you. I'd also like to express my gratitude to the Reserve Bank of New Zealand and Governor Adrian Orr. You have inspired us in how you're building closer relationships and partnerships with Maori. We all have a lot to learn from our combined experiences, and we really look forward to collaborating more on this in the future. Over the next 2 days, we're going to consider various aspects of present-day economies, and we're going to look back at, take a historical look at Indigenous economies. It's going to include issues around access to capital, resource development, and Indigenous businesses and labor markets. We're also going to talk about the impacts that policies throughout history have had on current day inequalities. I expect there are going to be moments of hope and moments of inspiration. We're also going to have uncomfortable moments of coming to terms with shameful parts of our history. Our nations have all traveled different paths in our colonial histories, and each country represented here faces unique realities in their relationship with Indigenous communities today. Toutefois, ce symposium témoigne de notre désir commun de nous concerter à l'échelle internationale et nationale, et surtout avec nos partenaires autochtones, pour tirer des leçons de l'histoire et nous améliorer. As I just said in French, this symposium reflects our shared desire to work together internationally and within our countries, and most importantly, within our Indigenous partners, to learn from our histories and to do better. Here in Canada, governments across the country and Canadians from coast to coast to coast have vowed to uncover historical truths and work towards reconciliation. We can't go back and change what's happened, but we can try to correct some of the consequences that arose from ugly periods in our past. To this end, we've committed as a country to advance reconciliation and renew our relationship with Indigenous peoples based on recognition of rights, as well as respect, cooperation, and partnership. Much of the work is being done through the lens of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report that was released 6 years ago with 94 calls to action. Part of this includes economic reconciliation, and that relates to our mandate as Canada's central bank. Fundamentally, it's our job to promote the economic and financial welfare of our country and all the peoples within it. The report encourages organizations to apply reconciliation principles, norms, and standards to their policies and operational activities. This speaks to one of the goals shared by all of us at this symposium, making our workplaces and our policies more inclusive. That means eliminating long-standing barriers and ensuring that all voices are heard. Because when we listen to more diverse voices, we have a greater understanding of how our policies affect all Canadians. And that helps us make better decisions. The report also calls for meaningful consultations with Indigenous peoples and communities on economic development and equitable access to jobs, training, and education. As Canada's central bank, we play an important role in creating the conditions for opportunity for Canadians. And this must include meaningful opportunities for Indigenous peoples within Canada. So taking concrete steps towards economic reconciliation is our responsibility too. And it's incumbent upon us to take the time to do this well. Dans cet esprit, la Banque du Canada collaborera avec un vaste éventail de groupes autochtones afin de déterminer ce que la réconciliation signifie pour nos activités. The Bank of Canada will be working with a broad spectrum of Indigenous groups to set out what reconciliation means for the work that we do. This will be a thoughtful and intentional exercise. We will look to our existing partners and hopefully many new ones to guide us toward a common understanding of what our role should be going forward. We've learned a lot from the relationships we've built over the past several years, and we've made some positive steps. Here I'm thinking about joint initiatives we've taken with Indigenous partners to identify barriers to economic inclusion. And we've undertaken some capacity building and education. We've embarked on these things together. Now it's time to broaden our engagement and reflect on what we can and should do. We know we have more to learn, and we know there are many other voices that need to be heard, including those of you joining us today and tomorrow. So we're going to take the best of the growth and learnings from our recent efforts, and we're going to ask our partners to walk alongside us as we take the next steps in our journey. Together, we're going to define what reconciliation means for the work of the Bank of Canada toward a more inclusive and prosperous economy for everyone. Comme je l'ai dit en anglais, ensemble, nous définirons ce que la réconciliation signifie pour la Banque du Canada afin de créer une économie inclusive et prospère pour tous. As I wrap up, I want to leave you with some inspiration to guide us over the next 2 days. And I can't say it any better than this quote from Elder Commanda's grandfather, William, who was also an elder. He said, "We must come together with one heart, one mind, one love, and one determination." I invite you to keep this vision top of mind as we work together to reshape our relationship with Indigenous peoples and foster inclusive growth and prosperity. We have a lot to learn from each other, and I am very grateful to our presenters, discussants, and participants. And I am confident that guided by your insight and wisdom, as well as the collective spirit of collaboration, this gathering will be an important building block to better understanding, better operations, and better policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Macklem. And your last quote is very fitting because we have found Elder Claudette Commanda, and she is going to now do an opening prayer before we continue on. So Elder Commanda, if you could please grace us with a blessing.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Sorry about having some technical difficulties, but when we live in this world, this virtual world, we have to expect these technical difficulties. So I ask those spirits of cyberspace, the gods of cyberspace, to really bless this meeting. And yes, that we're not disconnected once again. I begin by saying thank you to Governor Macklin for mentioning my grandfather, the late William Commanda. You know, it's just so it's so pleasing to hear that my grandfather's teachings and his vision and what he truly believed in continues to be remembered and to be exercised and to be respected by everyone. So, and it's so true as my grandfather believes, you know, the one mind, the one heart, the one spirit, that one love and that one determination. It's so important, so important. And especially when we're talking about Indigenous peoples, when we're talking about the rights of Indigenous peoples, when we're talking about correcting the wrongs, and we need to move forward with that one mind, one heart, one spirit, one love. For indeed, the Creator gave each and every one of us, regardless of color or creed or where we're from, He gave us love. So at this time, I begin by acknowledging my ancestors, and I say, Chimigwej ni jenwen daganago mamawenini wa chimigwej. I acknowledge my Algonquin ancestors, and I bring greetings on behalf of the Algonquin people. And I say, Chimigwej kakina migwej kibijaya goma no goma nishnabeeki. I welcome each and every one of you beautiful people into my homeland of the Algonquin people, as I acknowledge the homelands of all First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and Indigenous peoples across the world. I know that we are gathering worldwide, and so therefore the lands that we are sitting on at this time are those Indigenous voices, Indigenous spirits, Indigenous love. And I thank you. Thank you for bringing me into your homeland as I welcome you into my homeland. And again, that's about one mind, one heart, one spirit, one love. And that is so important. And together we must let us join our hearts and our voices and our spirit as one as we give thanks to that Creator, the one Creator who made all. And I welcome you into this prayer. And I ask that you say your prayer in the way that you believe, in the way that you were taught, in the way that you are comfortable. Even if that prayer is Chimigwej Kishiminado, even if that prayer is thank you, Creator. That is so important. And I say Chimigwej Kishiminado Migwej Onje Nongo. Migwej Onje Kanakego. Thank you, Creator, for all of your blessings. Let us put our hearts, our mind, our spirit and our voice together as one, brothers and sisters, as I acknowledge each and every one of you, Commissioner Manny Jules, the relatives of Turtle Island, Indigenous brothers and sisters from New Zealand, and all Indigenous peoples of Mother Earth, to the governors and speakers and distinguished guests who are here today for this virtual symposium on Indigenous economics. We are all in this circle together, and I ask the Creator to bless each and every one who are here. Nibuksendam Gishiminadonje Kakina, Nibuksendam Chimino Taguzug, Nibuksendam Mashkawiziwin, Nibuksendam Minapumadziwin. Creator, it is my prayer for all who are here that you continue to bless them with good health, good life, strength, wisdom, and knowledge, and that good words will be shared here today. Creator, we come together as brothers and sisters, and we acknowledge that first mother who provides for all people, that first mother, and we say, Chimigwej Kokomis, Migwej Jojoaki. We thank our Mother, the Earth. We come together, Creator, all of the people who are here with that one mind, one heart, one spirit, and one love, as we acknowledge that first grandmother who blesses us each and every night, that shines her light upon us and helps Mother Earth with the waters, and that light that so we can see our sister, the stars, and we say Chimigwej Kokomis de Begizis as we thank our Mother, the Moon. Creator, we come together as brothers and sisters in this circle with that one mind, one heart, one spirit, and one voice as we say thank you to that first grandfather. That grandfather each and every morning as he warms each and every one of us, as he warms our Mother, the Earth, and he shines this light so we can see the beauty of life. And we say, Chimigwej Mishomiskizis. We thank our grandfather, the sun. And Creator, we thank you for bringing us here together. We thank you, Creator, for all of your blessings. Nibuk senda mashkawi ziwenongum uma ashishwabang and nabigis gishimanado and nabigis widokushnang onji kakina. Thank you, Creator, for hearing our prayer. Thank you, Creator, for this blessing. And we know, Creator, that you will continue to help each and every one of us as we come together in this great circle of life. Chi miigwech. Thank you, miigwech.
Thank you, Elder Command. It put a good spin on the day by doing that. I appreciate and am grateful for the prayer that you had for us today. Thank you very much. Now we'll continue with the opening remarks, and it's my honor to introduce Chief Commissioner Manny Jules. Chief Commissioner Jules has dedicated over 40 years of his life to public service in support of Aboriginal issues. He's a member of the Kamloops Ta Secwemik, formerly known as Kamloops Indian Band, and he served as chief there from 1984 to the year 2000. Chief Commissioner Jules led the amendment to the Indian Act in 1988, so that First Nations could exercise the jurisdiction to levy property taxes on reserve. The Indian Taxation Advisory Board, ITAB, and the current First Nation property tax system were created as a result of his vision and efforts. He was also the driving force behind the First Nations Fiscal Management Act, passed by Parliament in 2005, creating the First Nations Tax Commission and the fiscal institutions. Chief Commissioner Jules is a recipient of an honorary doctorate of laws from both the University of British Columbia and Thompson Rivers University, the Order of British Columbia, and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal. Chief Commissioner Jules is also a member of the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business Hall of Fame. Chief Commissioner Jules, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Manny Jules. I am Shukwamuch. I am the Chief Commissioner of the First Nations Tax Commission and founder of the Tulu Center of Indigenous Economics. I was an elected chief of my community for 26 years. Thank you for inviting me to provide opening comments at the Central Bank's Network Symposium for Indigenous Economies. The effort and work to put out this symposium during a global pandemic has been incredible. Congratulations to the Bank of Canada, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, the Reserve Bank of Australia, the Reserve Banks of Minneapolis and St. Louis for all of your hard work. On behalf of the Tulu Center, we are proud to be here with you as partners. I would like to welcome all of the Indigenous people from New Zealand, Australia, and the United States attending this symposium. We know why we are here. We want more sustainable and resilient economies. We want to renew our jurisdictions, title, fiscal powers, and institutions. We want monetary policy to work for us too. More importantly, we want colonialism to end. As you all know, ground-penetrating radar was used to discover the burial sites of 215 children here on the former residential school in Kamloops, from where I am speaking. It is a deeply personal and brutal reminder of what colonialism meant to us. We grieve and honor these children. We are with these children in spirit. The goal of this symposium is best summarized in the words of my good friend Satsan. The focus of the work we do here today must be to create a new memory for our children. As the Governor of the Bank of Canada has stated, there will be no sustainable economic recovery from the pandemic unless we effectively address economic inequality. To paraphrase my dad, who was chief and a council member here for 25 years, it is good to know you think like us. As participants of this symposium, we should acknowledge two facts. First, Indigenous people had governments and an institutional framework that supported trade and economies pre-contact. Second, colonialism destroyed our institutions, our fiscal powers, and our ability to innovate. We were legislated out of the economy. This symposium and network represent an historic opportunity that we must not let pass. There is a political There is political will in all of our countries to address our systemic inequality. We must begin to deliver on that hope. The pandemic has increased the systemic income, health, education, and infrastructure gaps between us and the rest of the economy. The research discussed in the symposium and the future work of this network must not be about slogans or signaling virtue. It must be about sharing practical ideas and implementing innovations that make a real difference in our lives and, more importantly, the lives of our children. This symposium is the beginning of a two-part innovative system that can close our economic gaps and reduce inequality. An innovation system that can creatively destroy the sad legacy of colonialism. The first part of the system is the design and the development of institutional ideas and innovations. This network contains the best and brightest economic and finance researchers from our countries. It contains the technical knowledge to close our data and statistics gaps. This symposium will be presenting research and proposals to launch of the idea factory we need now. This is why we are optimistic about the success of this symposium and the future work of the central bank's network. The second part of the system is implementing these innovations effectively and quickly through legislation and institutions for interested Indigenous governments and people. It is the job of institutions like the First Nations Tax Commission, the First Nations Management Board, the Tulo Center, the Naitaho Research Center, the National Intertribal Taxation Alliance, and many others in the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. This is why the participation of our institutions in this network is so important. We hope that many more Indigenous ones join this network and present their innovations and success stories at future symposiums. If we recognize and fulfill our roles, and if we share a commitment to curiosity, humility, respect, and constant improvement, then this symposium and the network will be a success. It will generate, evaluate, and share ideas and research that reduce the systematic causes of our economic injustice. It will help advance the legislative, institutional, and structural changes that are required to renew Indigenous economic institutions and economies. It will support the transfer of knowledge, research, data, and capacity so that our people and governments can participate in the economic and fiscal framework of the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And as we do this, we begin to reverse centuries of injustice. We will begin to provide hope. We will begin to put a new memory in our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Commissioner Jules. Very well said. I now have the pleasure to introduce Adrian Orr, Governor of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, who will provide our final set of opening remarks. Governor Orr is the Governor of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, Te Putea Matua. He is New Zealand born and bred and primarily of Cook Island and Irish descent. Governor Orr is an undergraduate of the University of Waikato and a master's graduate with distinction from the University of Leicester. He has worked in many organizations within New Zealand and internationally, including the City University Business School in London, New Zealand Institute of Economic Research, National Bank of New Zealand, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, New Zealand Treasury, Westpac Banking Corporation, and the Guardians of the New Zealand Superannuation Fund. He was appointed as the Governor of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, Te Putea Matua in March 2018. Governor Orr, over to you.
Kia ora tātou katoa, ina mana, ina reo, tēnā tātou katoa. My warmest greetings to you all, and thank you for that kind introduction from all of you, our Indigenous friends and families, our central banking colleagues, our academic researchers, the Indigenous organisations, all of whom are gathered here today. Nā rā te mihi. I'd like to acknowledge very much the work of the Banque of Canada, together with the Tulo Centre for Indigenous Economics, in organising this symposium here today on Indigenous economies. It is a wonderful moment to be here with you all. Chief Money Jules, Andre and Tiff and your team, thank you so much for making this symposium happen. It's taken your courage and foresight for us to be here today. As current chair of the Central Bank Network for Indigenous Inclusion, I would also like to formally welcome our most recent member, which is the US Federal Reserve System. What an honour to welcome Governor Michelle Bowman. Thank you so much for joining, and we really look forward to working together, sharing our knowledge and growing together. We have got so much collaboration that we can learn from around lifting our knowledge of the Indigenous economies and raising everyone's economic well-being. We're all committed to a shared vision. Our mission is around dialogue, raising awareness, sharing knowledge, and promoting Indigenous economic well-being. Importantly, this is in partnership with our Indigenous peoples. Working together, collaborating will be the backbone of our success. Throughout the year to date, our network members have shared an enormous amount of history, knowledge, experiences with regards to Indigenous economies. And as Tiff mentioned at the front, much is uplifting, much is new, and much is really challenging for us. So congratulations, all of the institutions, for having the courage to be here today. Some of the resounding themes that have come up through the year include challenges really around financial inclusion or lack thereof too often, access to capital or lack thereof too often, and significant information gaps and misunderstandings between all parties within our economies. So, you know, we can bridge these gaps and we can raise economic well-being by the actions that we are taking today. Over the next 2 days, we're going to hear about a lot of the work that's been happening. The symposium really is an example of what can be achieved through greater collaboration. Provides a unique opportunity for sharing research and seeing how we can progress together in raising our collective well-being. From Aotearoa, New Zealand, you will get to hear and listen to Te Mare Tau of Ngāi Tahu Research Centre. It's wonderful, Te Mare, to have you here with us. He's going to speak to the importance of institutional economics to tribal economies. One of our colleagues here at Te Pūtea Mātua, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, Gail Price, will be very proudly speaking to Te Ohanga Māori, which is some serious research work we've done on the Māori economy, a snapshot of the state and the challenges. And it's a really critical document to be benchmarking what we can do to improve the overall financial inclusion of Māori in New Zealand. Since the inception of the Central Bank Network, Te Pūtea Mātua has also supported the development of Tāwhia. This is a group of Māori bankers operating in the retail banks within New Zealand. And Tāwhia is made up of Māori people working in very senior positions in the retail banking sector in Aotearoa. And today you will hear from two of the members. Tāwhia has three or pillars on the work they're focusing on. Financial inclusion for Māori, increasing the number of Māori working in the financial sector, and access to capital for Māori. Three very important pillars, and we're very proud of working with Tāwhia. Today you're going to hear from the co-chairs of this group, Anthony Raruni and Fontaine Moses Tikani, who will be presenting in this symposium on institutional innovations in Indigenous economies. So kia ora, Anthony, Fontaine, Knockham Dev today. You're right in amongst it, doing the mahi, doing the work. And lastly, but not least, you're going to be hearing from our Assistant Governor, soon to be anointed Deputy Governor, Christian Hawkesby, who will be talking about integrating the Indigenous knowledge into the heart of central banking. We're doing this at Te Pūtea Mātua, really taking guidance from our founding document of New Zealand, the Treaty of Waitangi. This was signed by the chiefs of Māori tribes throughout Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the Crown of England. It's incredibly recent, it's 1840, so it is a fresh document historically, and Christian will be talking about how we look to honour these principles in all of the work we do at Te Pūtea Mātua. That's across meaningful partnerships, equitable participation, and active protection. These are the three po of the Waitangi Treaty. At the Reserve Bank here in New Zealand, we have a Te Ao Māori strategy. It is a key function in building our collective understanding and helping us embrace our own history and heritage. By exploring how Māori culture and businesses operate, we are able to gain unique insights into the workings of the whole economy of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and where the significant opportunities for raising our performance exist. By adopting Māori values, such as storytelling, it is also helping us to grow interconnectedness within the bank around how we operate together and how we can grow and best support the ecosystem of New Zealand. The very existence of this network and the gathering of everyone here today allows us to move beyond simply bringing awareness to these important issues. We are ambitious. We have the opportunity to establish clear targets to work towards collectively and to agree what success looks like, to know that we are progressing through time. In Te Ao Māori, there's a very useful concept which is called mātangi rua. This is about working together. The simple visualization is if you're on a sailing vessel, the sails are at full bloom, everyone knows exactly what they're doing, everyone is pulling together, and we are on this journey at full speed in full confidence, mātangi rua. We can all embrace this concept of mātangi rua, I believe, in our endeavour to promote and foster this ongoing dialogue and raising awareness of all of the challenges and benefits our Indigenous economies can bring us, working in unison towards our ultimate purpose. Me taki mā tā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Over to you, John.
Excellent. Thank you, Governor Orr, for that great opening. So again, thank you, Governor Macklem, Governor Orr, and Chief Commissioner Jules. And in those statements, I heard history. I heard economic reconciliation. I heard financing. I heard working together. And to me, hey, that bodes well for the rest of the day that we're going to spend here together.